Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another session of our version 2 general overview. We're very fortunate that we can schedule these sessions as quickly and as promptly as we need to. This was a really impromptu session. There were a couple of our partners that couldn't make the first one, haven't been able to watch the recording, and I agree with most of the comments that a live session is just a little bit more unique. People feel a bit more engaged, they get their questions answered immediately. So IronTree facilitates. Here we are with another live session. So Byron is with me today as usual. He'll be taking us through the platform and doing a bit of a live walkthrough. There's a couple of things I just want to discuss with everybody. As you all know by now, IronTree has launched version 2. The facets of version 2 really, it comes down to two core products. So IronTree Protect, which we'll go into a bit more detail in a second, and then our good old IronTree Backup, now with even more features and functions. IronTree Defense is a standalone security product, if you will. So for instance, if you have IronTree Backup and you want a security function to kind of complement that, you might have a single license or a single device that you want to use IronTree Defense on. But the main core product, like I mentioned, is going to be IronTree Protect and IronTree Backup. So IronTree Protect, why we are shouting so much about this product. Guys, this is revolutionary. It is state-of-the-art, first of its kind. The combination of backup and disaster recovery and your cybersecurity aspects, this is huge. This is a really, really breakthrough product. We're very, very pleased that we're able to kind of bring this to our clients and our partners. So off the bat, the security aspects, things that are already included would be your ransomware protection, your patch management, antivirus, state-of-the-art antivirus, I have to say. And then Byron's going to talk about evolutionary new functions and elements that are going to come out of this product in the near future as well. And then very importantly, the cloud backup aspect makes this a very, very, very cool and unique solution. So if we just peek under the hood, the kind of off-the-bat functionalities that are included in IronTree Protect, as I mentioned, starting very, very importantly with the backup and disaster recovery aspects. Then they've got a functionality, there's a functionality called continuous data protection, which is exactly what it is. So it's real-time protection of your data. Ransomware protection off the bat, protection against advanced threats and zero-day attacks, all the fancy buzzwords, behavioral and signature-based anti-malware, AI, threat alerts, secure file sync and share. There's data notarization baked into the system already. And very importantly, endpoint management, including vulnerability assessments of your environment. So Byron, I can't wait for you to say this. I'm going to say this. What is actually being released in the latest version of this product is endpoint device and endpoint port management. So the physical ports on a laptop, on a desktop, be it your USB, be it your HDMI, as I learned this morning, those are now all going to be able to be controlled by this solution as well. So you're able to actually secure your entire office network. Each device you'll be able to secure from a remote location if you so choose, because it's all cloud login and cloud console driven. And it actually just gives you that entire view of your layer of protection that's in your client's business or your own business, if you will. All right, so let's have a look at IronTree Backup, just some of the new features. So we've got additional workloads that you'll be able to kind of back up. So off the bat, Microsoft 365 backup and Google Suite backup would now be able to be backed up with your solution that you chose, completely web-based. So you're able to access and recover and restore your files as you need to from the location that you currently find yourself in. There is a layer of security that comes with the pure backup product. It's called Active Protection. This can work alongside your third-party antivirus tool that you have. It just gives you that additional layer of security. And then there's also a little bit more granular functionality when it comes to scheduling your backups and the frequency that you run it with. There's also a bit more flexibility in the retention of your data. So for instance, if you've got a client that's a law firm, and they need to retain, or a financial institution, and they need to retain their data for up to 5 years, 10 years, even in some cases. We've got those adjusted retention periods now baked into the system, so you are able to kind of choose based on what your client's requirements are. So very excited about that aspect. We've communicated now for the last 6 weeks or so about the importance of migrating all our customers from version 1 to version 2. The onus at this stage is currently with our resellers to make a choice. Either we migrate your customers for you, or you tackle it on your side, and we're obviously there to assist you. So after this session, I think what's very important is have a talk with Chantel. Let's plan for a session. Chantel's going to be there to be able to talk pricing with you. She's going to be able to talk a little bit more about the migration, how long an average migration takes, what's the requirement on the client side. And then my suggestion would be we tackle your own accounts first. We migrate your accounts, familiarize yourself with the system, and then we tackle your clients. Option 1 would be you alert your clients that an IronTree consultant is going to phone them, set up an appointment, do the migration. Option 2 would be we train you, we show you how to do it, and you take care of the migrations on your side. Guys, we're eager to get our entire base over to version 2 as soon as possible. There's going to be multiple benefits in the migration process for you as reseller. We are going to dangle a couple of very, very cool carrots in front of you to get you to speed up with your migration, which includes higher rebate percentages. The packages itself is actually going to offer you a little bit more rebate. It's bigger, better. It's the way of the world. Everything is getting it's getting upsized, if you will. And this is now where we're operating with our core product as well. All right, so at this point, I'm going to hand over to Byron. Byron, before you jump into the demo, maybe just talk about what you're going to cover on this slide, and then you can take over the screen.
Awesome, thank you very much, Jaco. So yeah, guys, we're really excited to show you the IronTree version 2 platform. There's been a few massive changes to the platform itself from what you guys are used to seeing. I'm going to take you over a general walkthrough of the reseller platform, which is your reseller portal now to manage all of your backups and cyber protect accounts. And then we're going to dive into a customer's backup account as well to see what's changed with that on that side rather. Some of the things we're going to go over: viewing your clients, so that single login to view all of your clients. We're going to talk about the dashboards and some of the reports we can generate. And then I'm going to touch on protecting devices. There are breakaway sessions after this general overview, which will be shared with everybody. And those will be recordings of each one of these aspects in a bit more detail. So without further ado, I'll share my screen and take you through the reseller platform. Okay, so there's a couple changes that have taken place on the reseller platform, or the IronTree version 2 platform, if you will. The biggest changes to make note of: everything is now managed through a single logon. So if you're a reseller of IronTree and you log into your reseller platform, everything can be managed from that single login. When I talk about management, it would be configuring devices, running backups for clients, and running restores for clients. All of that's now driven through this platform. And then another change to mention, which is a change that you guys need to sort of grasp and understand. In our old world, in IronTree version 1, we used to have a ATSIX username or a backup account per device. Now that device had its own account. So if a client had 3 devices in their office, we would generate 3 accounts for that client, right? What we've done now is we've consolidated all of those usernames into one customer-wide account. So that means that your customer will essentially receive one IronTree version 2 account, and below that account will live multiple devices. So we no longer need an account per device. Another change is that we've also started naming our accounts according to the company name. So no longer referring to them as ATSIX usernames. You'll now see them displayed with the actual client's name. So what I've done here, and what you guys can see here, is the reseller platform. This is the new console that you guys will get access to when we start migrating your clients across. And this is your single login to start managing your customer accounts. So as soon as you log in, you'll be directed to the clients tab on the left-hand side here, which will then list all of your clients down the middle. Now, we can see that these are individual customers based on this icon here, which is the small house that represents a single customer. Now, further to this, we can categorize our clients according to, in this case, different SLA levels. So I can create a folder on my own accord and then chuck all of my clients that fall into that category. So you can start to manage your clients from that way as well. You'll also be able to see if it's an active account or if it's a trial account, if it's just been deployed as well. Now, to focus on the multiple devices per account, if I take a look at Alvin's laboratory over here, just from the screen here, we can see that the customer account is active. It's a paying client. His two-factor authentication is enabled, which is good. And then at the moment, he's protecting 20 gigs of data. That's the amount of data that's stored at the IronTree data center in a compressed format. And his protected workloads, he's got 6 devices here that have been protected. So now if I click on Alvin's laboratory over there, you can see on the top left over here, I've gone one step down in the hierarchy. And then over here, I get a similar overview. 20.35 gigs of data protected at the data center across 6 protected workloads. If I scroll down towards the bottom of the screen, I can then start to see what those 6 protected workloads are made up of. So we can see 1 workstation and 2 virtual machines there under the Essentials edition. Under the Standard edition, we've got 1 virtual machine. And then in terms of backup accounts, backup only accounts, he's also protecting 2 mobile devices. So you can start to understand how this console becomes your single management point for protecting your client's data, whether it's IronTree Backups or IronTree Protect. Now, before we go ahead and dive into that customer, just jumping back to the reseller's point of view. So I'm back at the reseller login. I can view all of my clients over here. If I click on users on the left-hand side here, this lists the users that have access to my reseller console. So these would be my employees internally. So any of my support guys or sales guys that need to manage accounts, I can come in here, I can say new user, add the first name, last name, and email address, give them the right level of access, and then that internal employee will have access to my reseller platform so they can then jump in there and start managing their accounts. Going to the overview page over here, overview and then operations. This is your internal dashboard or your internal view into your entire customer base's backup status and protection status. So because I've logged in as a reseller in this case, I start to see information that relates to all of my customers. So this isn't specific to a customer. This is specific to your IronTree version 2 accounts. So an active alert summary over here, very important. We can see that 3 backups have failed and malware has been detected on two devices. Now you can interact with these widgets. So if I click on the backup failed, I then get this pop-up and it's going to tell me that this is the customer Accounting Direct Pty Limited that is responsible for those 2 or 3 failed backups rather. Now from this point, I can click into Accounting Direct and then say go to customer, but I'll show you another way we can get to the customer. But I just want you to understand that from these active widgets here, you can navigate to your clients as well. Again, this is completely customizable. So if I didn't want to see any active alert summary over here, or if I wanted to move it around, I could simply move it around, get rid of it, and then add my own widget. So these widgets cover both the IronTree backup only platform as well as the IronTree Protect platform. So you can see we can start to pull information on anti-malware protection over there because some of my clients have IronTree Protect running. So this is customizable, like I said. You can download or send this report to your internal employees. You can also schedule a report under reports over here and then operations. You're going to see a similar dashboard. You can build out these reports according to information that you and your team will find important. And then we can schedule these reports to be sent either daily, weekly, or monthly, depending on your preference. So this is the view that you guys as resellers will have into your IronTree version 2 accounts. I think it's great that that you have this level of access into your client's environments now, and also just the ease of managing your accounts becomes so much better now. So what I want to do now is simulate myself as a reseller having to support one of my customers. So if we take a look at Alvin's Laboratory again over here, this is a customer that I want to manage. So I'm going to click on that customer account. I'm then going to get to the overview page. Live demos. Sorry about that, guys. Yaku, can you still hear me just to make sure it's not my internet?
No, I can still hear you.
Okay, perfect. So from my reseller platform, I then clicked on Alvin's Laboratory. I get this overview page. I can click operations at this level here, sorry. And then this is information that that is specific to only this customer. So we can see that's represented on the top left over here. So from my IronTree demo, I've then gone to Alvin's Laboratory. Now, any information that I view from this point forward is information about Alvin's Laboratory. So existing vulnerabilities, a definition of a vulnerability would be a piece of software that is out of date or end of life. We can see the severity level there and when it was detected, the devices that are being protected, statuses, last successful backup for this specific customer, and so it goes on. If I click on users on the left-hand side here, now remember, because we've dived into a reseller, into a client's account, any users that I view at this point have access to this customer account only. So I've gone one level into my reseller platform to a specific client. I've clicked on users. These are the users that have access to that customer's backup console specifically. So if these users had to log in with this login username and their password, that means they'll just log into Alvin's Laboratory as the backup console. But now if I wanted to manage this account, I can click on overview, or I navigate to Alvin's Laboratory as a customer account within my reseller platform. And then I can click on manage service. You'll see we start to get redirected, to a new dashboard. And now this dashboard, or this console that you see at this level, is my customer's backup console. This is where all of my configuration comes into play when we service in this customer. If I needed to add devices, I would add devices from this level here. If I needed to run backups or run restores, that would all be driven through this backup console for this customer. Now you can, like you saw there, click manage service. So from your reseller login, manage service, you get directed to the client's backup console, or you as a reseller could log in directly to the backup console. It's up to you and depends on what you're trying to achieve. But now, because this is information specific to this customer, this specific customer as well has IronTree Protect running. So that's that combination of IronTree backups and cybersecurity, all delivered from one console and managed through a single agent deployed on the client's endpoint. So the dashboard here are really cool. We can see how much data was backed up just today, if there's been any malware blocked, malicious URLs blocked, vulnerabilities, so my out-of-date software on my client's environment, and then how many patches are ready to install, because patch management is part of this solution as well, included in the IronTree Protect offering. If I click on devices on the left-hand side here, and I'll get insight into what devices my customers protect. And so we can see we've got a mixture of virtual machines, some Windows laptops or desktops, and then some mobile phones as well. The reason why these are different colors, so if you see a light gray icon, it means that device is offline. If you see a dark gray icon, it means that device is online. So that's a good way that to determine that. Now, if this, let's assume this was a brand new customer and there were no devices added. What would be the steps to add a device to get it to this console so we can apply protection? Because now everything's driven through this new backup console and IronTree version 2 platform. All my configurations when it comes to selecting data, setting the schedule for backups. All of that's driven through the client's backup console. So the steps that would typically take place: you contact IronTree to migrate an account or create a new account. We send you the username with an activation link. You guys click on that activation link and set up a password. Now that's specific to a customer's backup console or a customer's backup account. Once you do that, you're going to land up in this console here, and we can see that in the top over here, it's referenced by backup-console. So we know this is a backup console. This isn't my reseller console. I've logged into the backup console directly. The first time you guys log in to a new backup console for a new account, you're going to be prompted to add devices. So it's going to ask you straight away, click here to add a device. Now, if you happen to click past that notification or that pop-up, what you would do is navigate to devices on the left-hand side. Then it would take you to all devices. Then I can simply click add on the top right over here. Now this will give me the option to add the different types of workloads that we can now protect. So of course, your typical workstations, Windows and Mac, servers, Windows and Linux, mobile devices as well we can protect. If your client's running a virtualization on site, we can protect those from a hypervisor level and then offer protection for those virtual machines, which will also allow them to take full system backups and recover back to that hypervisor. And then some of the more some of the application aware backups, this is where we would grab our Microsoft SQL plugin. It's important to note, in order to protect SQL, we will need to input the SA username and password in the client's backup console, so it can pick up the individual databases and apply protection to specific databases. If they're still running an Exchange server, we can grab that plugin here. But more importantly, the Microsoft 365 Business Edition. If I had to click on that, it would add this workload protection to my client's backup console. All I'd have to do is log in with that client's admin or global admin tenant for Microsoft. In doing so, it will deploy an agent in the Microsoft cloud, and then I'd achieve a cloud-to-cloud backup job. So I won't back up anything from the client's local devices. I deploy something in Microsoft, and from Microsoft's cloud to IronTree cloud, the backups take place. And the protection there includes protection and backups for their email accounts, SharePoint sites, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams as well. So this is where we get all of our agents from. The step to add a device, I'd simply click on the agent that's correct for the device I want to protect. It downloads the agent locally. Once that agent's been downloaded locally, we then run the installation or the executable. It runs, it goes through a registration process, and that registration process basically ties up the device to the client's backup console. To ask you to confirm the registration, you confirm it, and then a couple minutes later, the device will pop up in your client's backup console, obviously as an unprotected device. So the next step would be to protect the device. Okay, so assuming that we've just added, let's say, this transactive virtual machine over here. I've just run through the installation process, and now I want to apply protection to this device. So I'd simply click on the device. Once I click on the device, I get these options that open up on the right-hand side here. So the first one, obviously protect, the most important one, which is what we're going to go over now. Recovery, that would be restoring data. So now I can either restore data back to the original device if it's still online. If that device is offline, I'll just need to register the replacement device to the cloud console. Then I can choose that new device as a recovery location and restore data down to that machine. Because this is the IronTree Protect backup console for this customer, we've got a couple of extra options here, one of which includes the Cyber Protection Desktop. So through this console, I can actually achieve either a HTML5, which is a new internet window connection into my client's local device. So if I wanted to offer your typical desktop support, maybe support with your Sage applications, printing support, Office 365 support, it can all be driven through this cloud console. I would click on Cyber Protection Desktop. I get these options here, either HTML5 or RDP. RDP will use my locally installed Windows Remote Desktop tool to then connect to that client's endpoint. Your client does have complete control over the security behind this. So if they decide that they wouldn't like you to connect to their devices, they can simply go into their settings and disable any remote connections from taking place. Also important to note that if I do try and connect to one of these devices through any of these protocols, I will have to produce the admin or a user's name and password for the Windows login once I get to that point. Then patch management, that's included as well. Inventory reporting, so we can report on software and hardware inventory across the client's environment and devices specifically. But let's focus on protecting a device. So I've added the device. It's the first time I've added it, so it's unprotected. I select the device and then I click on protect to apply a protection plan. This device already has a protection plan installed, but I'm going to simply click on add a plan. So I'm going to create a new plan for you guys and quickly run you through the sort of configuration that we have. Remember, this is the IronTree Protect offering. So that's why we see the backup options, the antivirus and malware protection, URL filtering, etc., because this is the IronTree Protect. If this was a backup only customer, I would have backup and then something called active protection. Active protection's responsible for keeping devices safe from crypto mining, process detection. There's a active protection tool which will monitor your client's files. And if they, through AI technology and such, if the application sees that your data suddenly been moved to a new location, changed file names and sizes, it's through their algorithms, they'll determine if that's a ransomware attack. And if it is, it will stop that process from executing within milliseconds. And then it can also, through the settings, proactively recover your client's data, either through the cache, if there's cache of that previous backup available, or it will start a manual restore to a new location of the data that was infected, assuming that you've been protecting that data. Let's run over the backup settings. Before I do it, I just want to make sure that you guys understand, we do have breakaway sessions where we dive deeper into all of the nitty-gritty settings that you see up on the screen over here. So I'm just going to go over it relatively quickly for this session. The first thing that we can do is name the protection plan. Now, I always recommend naming the protection plan according to the type of device that you are protecting, or the type of workload that you're protecting. Maybe it's a SQL server. And the reason I say that we need to name it accordingly is because this name pulls through to quite a couple of reports and email notifications for your client. So it will basically tell you that device A was protected with protection plan B, backup went through successfully, etc. So name the protection plan. It's a one-time thing, and it will really help you in the long run. The next thing is the backup. So obviously we want to turn backups on. I can then drop down on that toggle, and then I can start configuring my backups here. So the most important question, what we want to back up. By default, we will ask for the entire machine. However, if I drop down on the entire machine, I can select files and folders, which is a very common setting. If I do leave it on an entire machine, I can achieve a bare metal recovery should my client's device disappear, ransomware attack, go offline, whatever the story is. If I've taken an entire machine backup, what I can do is recover the machine through an ISO that this console will produce for you. We boot off that ISO image, and through that process, it will actually recover that device or restore the new device according to the last successful backup that took place on the old machine. But if I say files and folders, I say what to back up, files and folders. The next thing I want to do is specify the backups or the data I want to back up. So I say specify, then through this console, I can now select files and folders. So this guy's got one C drive. I can expand the C drive, navigate to the users, let's say administrator, and then just select his desktop, for example. So through this process, I can select my data. I can enter file paths or search for data or specific folders or files up here, and then apply protection that way. But in this case, we just want to back up the desktop. It tells me or confirms what I've selected. If there are multiple selections, they would be listed here for me. Then I click OK. And just by doing that, I've selected the data to back up. This is the continuous data protection we were talking about. So if I toggle this on, what we can achieve is, let's call it application aware continuous data protection. So if I want to continuously protect my client's Excel information, I would turn that on. And then through the settings, items to protect continuously, I can then choose what applications I want to protect continuously. So let's take a look at the Office documents. Let's unselect everything, look for Microsoft Excel, there it is. If I say that, anything that has your Microsoft Excel file type at the end of the name will be protected continuously. So protected continuously means the client's working on a document, the client says Control Save on their local machine. As soon as they've done that, it will then get backed up to the IronTree data center. So they would have the most recent version backed up at the IronTree data center. So I can do that, or I can specify files and folders paths to protect continuously as well, if you prefer doing it that way. Where to back up? This is cloud storage. This is still at the IronTree data center. This still takes place to the Vodacom Business Data Center in Midrand. That's where all of our equipment that we own sits. So that will stay as is. Then the schedule, how often we want to back up. So there's a couple of ways we can configure this. Schedule by time, your normal Monday to Friday backup with a single start time. If I wanted to back up multiple times a day, I can click on hourly. Doing so, I'll still select which days I want to back up hourly. And then if I drop down run every however many hours, in this case, let's say 3 hours, from 8 to 6 in the evening. That's basically just setting up the window of backups to happen. So between 8 in the morning and 6 in the evening, my backups are going to run every single 3 hours in that increment. I can drop down to the minutes if that's preferred, and then the lowest schedule there would be every 10 minutes. But I think at this point, we would just set up continuous data protection if we go in that into it. So let's say every 3 hours between 8 in the morning and 6 in the evening, Monday to Friday. Click done. How long to keep data? This is your retention period within the new platform. So in our old world on IronTree version 1, we set this at the data center level. There was no way for us to change this on a client by client basis. However, with IronTree version 2, we are giving you guys the flexibility to adjust the retention period here. So you'd simply click on that and then say either you then just adjust your retention period. So if you wanted to keep up to 12 months of backups, for example, you would simply click +++ until you get to 12, or type 13, whatever you prefer. By doing so, you can then configure your own retention period. Just keep in mind that this will consume more of the cloud storage quota that's assigned to the customer's backup account. So if they do end up using up all of their storage, it could be because we've gone too heavy on the retention period. Encryption. It's really important to mention to you guys that without me turning this toggle on, my backups will be encrypted before they leave the client's device while they travel to the data center. And once they land up at the data center, they'll be encrypted. And that's without turning this toggle on. If I turn this toggle on, it's going to ask me for a password. This password will essentially password protect my console from any rogue users accessing the backups or protection plans that have been set up. So as soon as I try to do something that will affect backups or restores, it's going to prompt me to apply this password to the process. Now, if I forget this password, there's unfortunately no way for us to recover this. We can't send out a one-time PIN and a link. If we forget this password, there's no way to get it back, which means we can't recover data. So just make sure you have a strong password policy internally if we're going to make use of this encryption. And then under backup options, this is essentially a few more in-depth settings, out-of-date notifications. So our standard is 3 days. After 3 days of no successful or consecutive backups, we'll notify you guys that the backups aren't running. File filters, we'd add our exclusions over here. And then task failure. So if a task fails, a task, let's say, is a backup. If a backup fails, how many times do we want to reattempt it? An interval between attempts, every single hour, try again for 3 attempts. So this is where we had set up these sort of settings. So I'm hoping you guys at this point can see how everything's now being pushed over to this cloud console. All of my sort of settings and configurations now all driven through this. In terms of the local backup agent, if I show you what that looks like, this is all the client would see on their local device. And obviously, once a protection plan has been applied to a device, these options here won't be applied or won't be visible. It will just say how long till your next backup, or if a backup's running, it will just say 30 minutes left for the backup to complete, for example. That's all they can do from that local agent. The rest of it's driven through this cloud platform. If I wanted to enable antivirus and malware protection, I'd simply turn it on like so. I can then expand on that. I'm not going to go over all of these details. We'll save that for a separate session. But you can see here's the active protection. That's a process where it monitors data, recovers it proactively if you choose that option, or you just ask it to stop the process. Network folder protection, crypto mining process detection, what happens if a file gets quarantined, what you want it to do, and your scheduled scans. If we look at the URL filtering, so by turning that on, I can then configure categories or exclusions to either allow or deny my user from accessing. So if I wanted to deny anything advertised and related on this client's local device, I can come in here and just click deny, 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 and then I'd say done. If I wanted to put in a hard URL, so let's say facebook.com, I would come into blocked, I'd say add, I'll put in Facebook's address and any sort of sub address to facebook.com, so facebook.com/photos, for example, anything after the slash will be blocked as well, which is important to note. You don't have to go and categorize or enter every single parameter that Facebook links produce. Windows Defender antivirus, because this is a Windows machine, I can control the Defender or Windows Defender through this console. So that would be your scheduled scans from Windows Defender, what happens if a file is malicious and needs to be quarantined, what are the steps thereafter. And then we've got vulnerability assessment and patch management. Vulnerability assessment and patch management work hand in hand. So the assessment portion of this will run scheduled scans across both your Microsoft products and your third-party products. And it's basically scanning for any pending updates or available updates to these specific products. I can just leave both of them ticked. I can then choose only to have Microsoft products ticked, for example. It's then going to report either by email or scheduled reports all through the console, obviously, for any vulnerabilities defined as an out-of-date piece of software. It will let us know. But now through that assessment, we can actually apply those updates through the patch management. So patch management is essentially a process of automatically updating your applications to the latest update. I think gone are the days where we can update our applications to get the latest, greatest features. I think we can all agree in this room, we update our applications to keep safe from virus and malware attacks. So we all understand how important patch management is, but it does also pose a risk to some third-party apps. So let's talk about Pastel, for example. If we run a update on the Windows security side, they could block something or change something that affects the Pastel application. Luckily, through this application, we can take a pre-update backup of the client's environment so that if a recent patch has affected the client's device, I've got the backup that took place just before that patch was applied. To show you what sort of patches or the sort of level of detail we can go into with patch management, Microsoft products and third-party products are supported. So if I say Microsoft products, I can select specific products. So I'm going to say select products. Then you can get a list of all of the Microsoft products that we can apply patches to. So if I only wanted to run updates on Office 2016, that's the only reason I want to run patch management. I'd select Office 2016. I'll choose the category of the updates I want to apply. So only critical and security updates. Anything else doesn't need to be applied. The severity level, high and critical again, and then approval status would be approved. It's been approved by the vendor. It's a legit update, or you rather only want legit updates applied. Through this process, I can select what I want to keep up to date and what sort of category and severity level I want to update. Once I've gone through those settings, I can achieve the same thing for third-party applications. Select specific third-party applications. So these are your major guys like Adobe, Oracle, your internet browsers, 7-Zip, for example. TeamViewer is over there. I can keep this up to date, minor or major updates, follow the same process, and then say through the settings on the console here, when I actually want to apply those updates. So I only want to run updates on my servers Sunday evening at 9 o'clock. And then if it needs a reboot after update, say only if required, or every single time reboot that server, no matter if it's required or not. So that's essentially the patch management at a high level. And then finally, the data protection map. This simply just gives you a good visual an indication of how much data is protected on my client's machine. So if I've only selected my desktop, it means that there's a ton of other data on my machine that's unprotected. So the data protection map will simply just display that graphically for you, so you can get a good idea of how much of that device is protected. Now, to finish off, email notifications. So email notifications are handled either through the client logging into their backup console directly, or you can, or you as a reseller from your reseller console can enable and disable email notifications for your clients. So remember, I'm in the backup console. This is client-specific backup console. If I click on Manage Account, I'm going to get redirected back to my reseller platform. Because I logged in as a reseller, that's my sort of origin. That's where I started. So if I say Manage Service or Manage Account, I get taken back to my reseller platform. And again, here we can see a list of all of our customers down the middle. If Alvin's Laboratory contacted me and they said they want to add their boss to the email notifications, I would click on Alvin's Laboratory. I'd click on users on the left-hand side here. These are the current users that have access to just Alvin's Laboratory. If I wanted to enable email notifications for an existing user, let's say the BR account, I'd click on that. Then on the right-hand side over here, under settings, I get my email notifications. So I click on the little pen icon and then enable or disable email notifications as necessary. Click done, and then email notifications are applied. If a new user just wanted to receive email notifications, I'd create a new user over here, enter his first name and last name, make him a view-only user, but through that process, set up his email notifications for the console. And that's how we would achieve email notifications. Let's go back to that presentation and just make sure we ticked everything off. Yaku, do you want to take over the screen share and just bring it up for us?
Sure thing, Byron. Let me just share the appropriate screen and no Excel documents. Cool. Let's go to the next slide. All right, Byron, over to you.
Okay, cool. So we went over viewing clients, the dashboards and reports, user management, your reseller level versus client level, email notifications, adding the device and registering the device, protecting a device, backing up a device. And what we didn't touch on was restoring data, but we may be running out of time unless I can spend 2 minutes on it, Joker.
Go for it.
Okay, perfect. Let me share up quick. Okay, so that should be, let's just double check. Can you see the screen, Yaku?
I can, yes.
Okay, cool. So
your
let's go over,
started, by the way.
Let's go over the recovery and data process. So I'm still in my reseller console. I want to navigate to a customer's account and help them recover data. So let's pick on Alvin's Laboratory again. I click on that. I say manage service. I get redirected. You'll see at the top over here to the customer specific backup console. This is where we've been playing around during the session. If I needed to recover data for Transactive, I would select that device and then click on recovery. This takes me to this window over here, which starts to list my previous backups that have taken place. So you can see my first backup was on the 8th of February. If I wanted to recover data from there, I can say recover files and folders. But if I wanted to take the backup from today at 8:15 in the morning, same story, click recover files and folders. Doing that takes me to this screen, which allows me to navigate through the selections, in this case, the C drive. So I can navigate down to the data that I want to recover. Let's say this very important text document. If I wanted to recover that, I then have the options on the right-hand side here to recover. Recover means send it back to that device because it's still online, or download it. Download it would be downloading it locally to my device where I'm sitting here. I can only download up to 100 megs of data to my local machine. Most of the time, we would have the option to click recover. So clicking on recover opens up this section, which allows me to either overwrite the original location or choose a custom location. With the custom location, I can browse through this client's local device. So the C drive again, you saw this when we were setting up this data selections. If I wanted to recover it under the administrator's desktop, I can hover over desktop, then this little gear icon here, I can actually add a new folder to the desktop, like so. Then I'd click on OK. I've now created a new folder on this client's desktop. That folder could be, this is where your data is, client. It then gets automatically selected for recovery, or the recovery location. I click done. It then tells me again where I'm recovering it to. We can see the data that I'm recovering is that very important text document. I simply say start recovery, do not overwrite, proceed, and then it starts the recovery process. Now we can, okay, if we skipped over that pop-up, which I wanted to show you in a different place, clicking on dashboard and then activities. This is all the sort of activities that are taking place in this client's environment. So you can see here the recovering files, which you just ran. There was a vulnerability assessment run earlier as well. If I click on that, I then get a quick breakdown of what exactly happened. So status, it was successful. The device I restored from, who actually started that recovery. So it was me. Start time, finish time, how long it took, and how much data was processed through that recovery process. And that's how we can achieve recovering data. All of it's driven through this console. It's important, again, to mention if that device was offline, I would bring up a new device. I'd register that new device to the client's backup console, and then that actually becomes a recovery location for me to select. And time.
Cool. Thank you, Byron. You make it seem very simple, showing off your technical expertise. All right, so yes, that was the last point that Byron wanted to cover, restoring data. Guys, I hope you found this interesting. We're very excited about this product. Byron actually just scratched the surface. I mean, this was deemed as a general overview. Hopefully it didn't scare you away. He mentioned earlier that we are going to have, let's call it micro breakaway sessions, where we actually have a live recording on each element inside the general overview. It's going to be short 5 to 10 minute videos, and that's going to also form the basis of our knowledge base going forward. So be on the lookout for that. We'll communicate it accordingly. It's going to be located on our website, and we'll also share that with you by email. All right, guys, I'm going to stop the recording for now, but I'm going to leave the session open. If there's any questions, you guys can jump into the Q&A section, and then we're happy to address those questions for the next 5 to 6 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Jaku. Thanks, everyone, for joining.